we were saying this is what happened this week or not on climate change. We often had a lawmaker with us or another advocate or ally, and always ended with some way that you could make your voice heard. So any feedback that you all have on that and the ways that we can make that as helpful, and if there's, looking to kind of expand on that in the coming year. We created a video, which I might, so Joey will get that going. So just trying to, so during election season, we put out a video calling for climate action, that we did a paid boost on Facebook. We reached something like 60,000 Vermonters during election season. You can watch it. Sure. Maybe?
Yep, we're going to watch it.
Volume.
Making snowmen. Skiing, sledding, making snowmen. You can ice skate and you can slide. It would make me sad if there wasn't any snow. Disappointing, unexciting. Our farm is closed for skiing, but it still sells maple ice cream. We can't do it ourselves! What's your plan?
Nice.
And can I interject really quickly just to say that I went to a national conference a couple of weeks ago of state-level advocacy organizations like ours, and they do advocacy videos talking about their issues, their programs, their organizations. Ours made the shortcut on the 10 videos that made it, and it came in second place, so had I voted for our own, it would have tied for first. And I just want to say more so that the message really resonated with people there. I hope it resonates with you, and more importantly, I hope it resonates with more Vermonters as we make space for our legislative leaders to
Joey,
be.
can I ask you who produced it? And who were the people who
VNRC and VCV produced it, and it cost us about $1,000 and 5 maple creamies. Those are all of our kids, so.
Yes.
Joey's daughter,
my
I had to give them props. Oh, and then maybe we had to, in between scenes, there was straight shots of maple syrup.
There's the bride.
It was
I love
a
that.
poignant moment at Morris Farm, in part because, as you saw there in their email, they're this amazing area that is now closed, and they are blaming climate change.
So we're trying to get creative, reach people in new ways. We welcome your ideas. There's a lot of good brains in this room. Please, any ideas you have that either you're doing that we can amplify, if you're doing it with your local energy committee or any group you're part of, or just on your own. And likewise, if there's stuff we're putting out that you can put out there, because I'm sure your networks is some people like you who care deeply and some people who maybe you went to high school with and haven't thought that much about this issue. So, all of us together, but definitely would welcome your creative ideas on how we continue to reach new people. And the last thing I'll say is I was down in DC for a meeting a week ago, and it was kind of echoed in the EAN presentation, but they were talking about rural transportation. This is just nut that is so hard to crack. And they were like, if Vermont could just be a leader on that, that would be so valuable for such a big swath of the country. And so that was like a place just to lift that up as something that I think there's this hunger for leadership on. We are a state that can do it, and so let's get to work. So I will now wrap up and send it out.
Just to follow up, since it's something I was going to talk about, but it's a wonderful segue, which is Vermont is a wonderful laboratory for lots of different topics. And so if we can crack this nut on rural transportation, I've heard that about rural affordable childcare, about rural health care, about mental health issues, that we have profound challenges because of the rural nature of our state. And so the extent to which we can do this work intersectionally, we're going to be much more successful. And we've talked about this before, so I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Excellent. So now I think Joey is going to facilitate a Q&A for us.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have lots of time for
Thank
questions.
you. Thank you, guys. We have until 12:15, and I guess thank you to Warren. I don't want to interrupt you, so again, everything you've already done, and now the question is, my first question, and you don't have to answer this now because I haven't opened up the floor, but my question is, how can we help you? Questions, and again, we're gonna be in here for a while, but keep them short. I know that folks have many of them. Matt can go around and take questions.
You don't need to hold it, just wait until it's green and then.
Hi, my name is Beth Barnes from Newport, the Northeast Kingdom, and I came today really for solidarity. I'm a proud member of a very small grassroots movement called Dump, Don't Undermine Memphremagog's Purity. We're trying very hard to block the expansion of the Casella landfill up in Coventry. It's on the shores of the Black River and Lake Memphremagog. And one of the big problems is the emissions from the over 100 trips back and forth that these trucks make every day from not just Vermont, but from all over New England, bringing their construction waste. So we have a big problem. We're a small group. I'm here with Lindy Sargent too, who's going to say a word, but what I'd like to ask of all of you, so that we don't feel so alone up in the Northeast Kingdom, is could you at least look at our website, nolakedump.com, and could you please sign our petition, just so that we don't feel so alone up there in the Northeast Kingdom, taking everybody's trash. Thank you.
I totally appreciate that. I do just want to make sure that we're asking questions of our legislative panel. Thank you.
And I'm heading to the question because in the legislature, you know, we see this as something that addresses a lot of the climate change initiatives that you've got in your urgent call. And so we wonder, even though it is not one of the issues that you mentioned, Chris, and I know you're interested and you're supportive, but we wonder if this is something, thinking of Bill McKibben's comment that, you know, community modeling versus governmental and corporate. We're fighting against a corporation. And we're fighting against, we feel, a little bit of governmental issues. So we just wonder, what can we do to help you, legislators, both our local ones who are all opposed as well, but as a state issue, is there a chance that we can get this going as an initiative to think about the efficiency of having one state landfill in the farthest corner from everywhere else, and all the emissions that go into it, and the concern for clean water in both Lake Memphremagog and in Lake Memphremagog, which is utilized by Canadian citizens?
Sure. So thanks for the question. I mean, solid waste, the Coventry landfill and solid waste as an issue is something that will be chairing the committee up for action. You know, we'll start working on that right away in January. There are a lot of connections to be worked out. So on one level, there's also, you didn't talk much about or mentioned the leachate issue. How much comes out of 3 tanker loads a day of leachate, and we don't have a standard defined for the release of that leachate via wastewater treatment facilities into surface waters of the state. We have a groundwater standard, but not a surface water standard. So there's public health issues, and then there's the energetics of trucking all the waste to one corner. There's social justice issues. Is this because one of the poorer towns in the state is sort of jammed into accepting the waste from all the other towns? So it's a great question, and there's a lot of good work for us to do there. And if I were to put a bigger frame on the whole thing, I would say it opens the door to a discussion about when a company produces something, that they should be responsible for the entire life cycle of it produced, so that we don't have waste being shunted off, and there's really not much. Citizens end up needing to step up to pay to manage the waste that was produced by someone else who made money by producing the object that's now a problem.
Can I follow up with a question, just so that since you asked for help, and you both mentioned feeling alone and sort of isolated on this. Question I have is, how much on the ground is it a partisan issue within the community?
In terms of the legislators?
No, not in terms of the legislator. I'm talking about community members.
Oh, as far as we have.
Here, use the mic, okay?
Petitions, we have signed all, and it's been
Use the mic, please.
almost 5,000 petitions that have come forward.
And
So
what is the pushback you're getting from people who are not signing the petition?
I haven't heard any.
Okay.
From when I've been just locally going. It's widespread here, and when I talked with friends in Montpelier and everywhere, they understand it, but it's still that issue. Oh, does it affect us? Yes, it affects you, which is like Montpelier. There's a lot of things to think about. So no, it's definitely there, and it's also in Canada, extremely big. And I mean, I think that Canada does make a difference to Vermont, and I think that should be something that should sway some of the agencies.
So I mentioned it, recently an old landfill in Halifax, in my county, they recently found PFOA in the landfill that was trucked from the Bennington plant. I think there are lots of connections cross-communally that we can do. Let's try to circle up after.
Thank you very much.
There's lots of questions. So, Matt, you're going to get exercise this morning. Maybe come over here. Yeah, raise your hands high. This is Matt. He's our amazing intern at VNRC.
Thank you. My name is Enrique Bueno. I'm with Vermont Passive House. I think the state has done a great deal in promoting renewables, and it's a great effort that we have done there. But I am in the building industry sector, and I really don't see the same effort in piping or eliminating the waste energy that our buildings are generating. And I think there is a great deal of room for improvement in the Vermont building code. So I wonder what the legislature is planning in that respect to do fight the problem that we have.
Thanks for that. Right, I think it's, we all know that energy not wasted is always the cheapest energy, and I've been working with Richard Fazy, who's right at the next table over, for a couple of years. We haven't made as much progress, I think, as we would like. For instance, on the simple idea that you would have a kind of like the miles per gallon sticker equivalent for homes, a home energy rating that would be part of every real estate sale, so that when someone went to buy a home, instead of talk with banks as well, normally they underwrite for principal, your ability to pay principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. They ought to, in my opinion, add an E on the end of that equation, and the energy, because that's going to be an ongoing cost and is directly related to your ability to afford the home. An investment up front is cost effective, and it helps make for more affordable housing for the long term. So I think I'm already reintroducing the energy MPG sticker housing piece of things, and I'd be happy to talk with you and Richard and others about what aspects of the building code might also be improved so that we can be cost effective. I know the last thing is in public housing. There was a project came through roughly 2 years ago, and we said that it should meet the stretch goals for energy efficiency, and happily it only added something like between 1% and 2% to the construction and sales cost of those homes, but it reduced the ongoing costs of operating those homes or those apartments by a great deal. So it's something that we need to make more progress on.
Hi, my name is Fran Putnam, and I'm with the Weybridge Energy Committee, which is right next to Middlebury. I'm looking at this number 5, review the results of the impartial Joint Fiscal Office's economic analysis on ways to decarbonize our economy and advance a policy that works best, and so on. I don't know how to put this exactly, but we are wasting so much time on, now we hear it's being called a carbon pollution fee, which maybe is a good idea, but did you both hear the mayor? So I want to know what you think, how we can move from a study. Could that take 2 years to figure out, oh, which is the best plan? When can we get something going? Oh, no, maybe not this year, maybe not next year. We don't have time to be wasting on this business. So I want to know what you think about a revenue neutral carbon pollution fee, like the one that Myrna Weinberger mentioned.
So what, I understand your frustration and the urgency you feel. And I just want to make sure that we also are really clear that this was a huge victory to get a carbon study in the appropriations bill. And I'm sorry that that's the reality, but that was a huge victory for us to be able to get that in there. And so I'm thrilled that we're going to have an analysis that's going to come back to us that does not have any sort of partisan slant on it. These are the numbers, best minds that we have in Montpelier laying it out for us. I believe that it will be, much more than anything that we've discussed in the past, an opportunity for us to have a blueprint. And I don't think anyone is interested in twiddling their thumbs or spinning their wheels. I think there are so many of us eager to see what the Joint Fiscal Office is going to bring to us. And then from that, have legislation that comes out. And so I don't want to be Pollyanna. I mean, I am a glass half full kind of person, I am. But for us to be able to get it in appropriations was huge.
So I mentioned that I was calling it the beige bill all last session, full cost accounting for fuels. To do that, every legislator, regardless of their, I think, sort of political bent, recognizes they have a fiduciary responsibility. Make sure that taxpayer dollars are well spent, the state is well run, all the rest. And one of the things that when we have this incomplete analysis of projects, for instance, to come back to something that came up earlier today, how did the Addison Natural Gas Pipeline project get approved? There are elements of that approval that are a mystery to me still. When I look at statute and look at the sort of accounting that I would have expected to have happened. Maybe it did, maybe it was incomplete. So I'm very interested in, we are a nation of, so this goes a little bit against the getting something done instantly, but we're a nation of laws, we're lawmakers. What I'm really interested in is making sure the laws we have are well executed and then altering them to make sure they are executed better. And this is one of the major gaps. We have greenhouse gas regulations already. We have least cost planning regulations already. And it's frankly a puzzle to me that I'm hoping this report will help us solve as to why, when we do a deep analysis, we can't distinguish that investing in 70-year fossil fuel infrastructure is not a wise investment. I mean, I would just say I'll stop there.
And can I also take moderator's prerogative? I know you want to say something, but also to say thank you both for those comments, but to put a finer point on what you said, Senator Bellin, that study was a recommendation of the 21-member governor-appointed Climate Action Commission, of which I was a member. 20 folks voted for that study, 1 did not. It was nearly unanimous that is a short-term recommendation of the governor's own commission. The governor, unfortunately, in his response to the Climate Action Commission, our initial recommendations, rejected even studying the issue. So I want to give kudos to our legislative leaders who not only ponied up the dollars in a tight fiscal year for putting that study into a climate package in the budget, but for championing it as a climate issue and for being willing to do what we're asking for here, which is not, to be open to seeing the results of that study, but ultimately acting on one policy that points to that could serve Vermont well in terms of doing what we need to do, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but in a way that grows jobs and opportunity and protects vulnerable Vermonters. So I do, again, want to just draw that distinction of, I was frustrated that the governor said, I don't even want the facts, ma'am or sir, but the legislature stood up and said, no, let's get some impartial information on the table, and let's be adults here and be open to having a conversation and pursuing policy that could work. So thank you so much for that, both of you. And our leaders in the back. Sorry, Lauren.
The only thing I wanted to add, I mean, there's a lot I could add, but one thing that I just wanted to highlight, just because it hasn't come up, was part of what we were thinking with this range of platforms. Is I couldn't agree more, Fran. We need action now, and it needs to be big and bold. We were trying to look at one of the challenges we've had with doing that is really kind of having what feels like the infrastructure in place for programs that are going to help the most vulnerable people make the transition. And so to me, a big part of it is, because some people, they see carbon pricing and it's like, it's just going to make it life harder and more expensive for the people who can least afford it. And we know we can structure a carbon pricing policy that gets around that, but part of it is helping Vermonters see, oh, there's programs and there's support out there for, I can get help weatherizing my home, I can get some help actually getting into an EV, or you're actually investing in transit solutions I can be a part of. So kind of people being able to see themselves in this future that's going to be better for them and more stable and affordable, and by the way, helping tackle the climate crisis. So that's part of the thinking, was it's all actually part of a big package that we need to be looking at, how are we actually getting Vermonters off of fossil fuels and to better solutions. But point well taken, and thanks for making it.
So I just want to thank you for pushing and to say, so here I am saying something that may sound too moderate, like I want to work with my colleagues to make sure the laws are sound, well executed, that the analysis is deep, nuanced enough to give us reliable answers. At the same time, I think impatience is also merited, and that's why I feel like it's great that we have this dialogue going on. And I would say, hold legislators' feet to the fire. And when I see smoke coming off them, I'll know that things are getting hotter than I hoped or thought, but that's okay. And I also feel like, from our side, we need to say, well, we're working, we are building the government you are asking for. And it's a complex construction.
Hi, I'm a member of Indivisible in Calais, and for the past 2 years we've been doing a huge amount of work getting people out to vote and letting them know about gerrymandering and voter suppression and issues like that. And I just kind of feel like maybe, and someone did mention this to Bill McKibben this morning, and he said he had been in touch with Indivisible, but I'm not aware of that. So I actually think that Indivisible is set up all around the state. They're pretty active. We have a very active group, and so we'd be very happy to work with any members of the state legislature that are interested in promoting the climate change issues. I mean, in our group, there's 3 of us have Chevrolet Bolts who are all the same color. It's a little confusing at times. So I know they're already a very committed group, and so we'd just be happy to to use the postcarding and letters and text banking and so on to try to educate and inform a lot more Vermonters than are aware. I mean, it's a little confusing for people about all the weatherization or other programs that are available, and then they just kind of throw their hands in the air. So.
Okay, so I want to make sure, Matt, can you give the mic to Senator McDonald back there? And just to say, we only have about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure that lots of people have questions so we can be brief and our comments and questions.
Is this on?
Yeah.
This morning, I learned 2 things here that sunk in. One was this morning when it was mentioned that we don't have a lot of time as human beings to deal with this. And the traditional way in which human beings make change is they do reasonable, incremental stuff, and they can talk to one another and pat each other on the back for moving forward together. The other one was what Joey said, that this has to be a kitchen table issue and not, I didn't get the alternative. What was the alternative, Joey?
It was Lauren.
I was saying some of your colleagues have said that that's what needs to happen.
And this is not the kitchen table here. And we act slowly, and we don't take risks, and we don't take too many threats. And that's an impediment to change. And if it's going to be a kitchen table movement that moves progress in this area in the short time we have, what are the people in this room going to do to get conversations going at kitchen tables and to get people that come to the legislature who have some knowledge about this and persuade us in large groups? I may. A couple years ago, I was at Barry Auditorium. It was for a doubleheader basketball game, and I had 4 or 5 constituents come up and berate me about the legislature's intent to ban plastic bags. And my answer was, why would anyone want to ban plastic bags? And they gave me all these reasons about how they were hanging in trees and animals were swallowing and dying and sewage treatment plants were being plugged up, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, so why are you objecting to the legislature banning them? And they went, well, you shouldn't be telling us what to do. And I said to them, I got to go get a hot dog, but when I come back, you should be telling us what to do. And apparently you're telling us not to ban plastic bags. Why aren't you telling us what you just told me 30 seconds ago, that they're polluting, that they hang in trees, they do this, they do that, they do the next thing? If you think they do that, why aren't you in the legislature telling us to ban plastic bags? That's the nature of our dilemma here today. And we got plenty of time to ban plastic bags, but we don't have a lot of time to deal with this. So I'm trying to make my point.
Yep.
But I want to know what the people in this room are going to do when they leave here, because this is the 4th year in a row where we've all come in here and talked about what Bill McKinnon shows us every year. When are Vermonters going to come in and say, we need a carbon tax? This has to happen. When are you folks going to get on the ball? I'm embarrassed that the best thing we did was to come up with a study about something we already know the answers to.
Thank you, Senator. That is our charge. I do have to say there's so much good work happening at the local level, but again, your point that we need strong policies that scale that up. So be please extremely brief in your questions and comments. So let's get down at this end of the room if we may. Matt, sorry to make you run, but just to change it up. Sorry, I don't want to stand between you and lunch.
Hi, my name's Casey. I'm with 350 Vermont, and I just wanted to make a quick comment. I wanted to thank Lauren for the information that you guys from your organization send out every week during the legislature. And one of my big questions is, how do we communicate with each other about all of this stuff in a timely way, and how do we educate ourselves and you all about what the issues are? And when people are talking about the issue in the Coventry landfill and how we're locked into one private corporation handling all of our entire waste stream in this state, this is not a plug, but in the current issue of Vermont Woman newspaper, I wrote an article about this issue, and you can find it on their webpage Monday if you want to go look at that. But my big question is just how do we stay on top of these issues, keep in touch with our legislators, and keep the information timely?
Great question, Casey.
Yeah, so I can start with kind of what's out there, but I also would love if people have ideas, and given the nature of this, grab me after, for those of us who are at the State House day after day and know what's happening. So I mentioned that we've started this new climate dispatch, trying to do a video every week that's, maybe 3 minutes of just, here's what happened, here's what's coming up next week, here's what we need you to do. So if there's, if people found that helpful, it'd be great to know. If they found some other way of communicating that, would be helpful to supplement, but we plan to continue doing that. A number of our groups, like Casey mentioned, for Vermont Conservation Voters, we do a weekly legislative update on a whole range of environmental issues, of what's happening that week and ways that you can make your voice heard in the process. So I think signing up for the kind of the organizations that are at the State House, we've got a number of partners here today, VNRC, VPIRG, VCB, I'm sure there's lots of others I'm missing, 350, Casey mentioned, Sierra Club. So, those groups that have a presence so that you can stay involved, I'm sure many of you already are, but if you're not, certainly reach us. But I would love if there are ideas that people have on, how do you find it most helpful to stay updated